7th of August 2023, Military Media Center of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. During the previous week, since 31st of July till 6th of August, the Russian Federation continued to wage aggressive warfare against Ukraine. The Russian Federation doesn't change its plans and wants to seize the whole territory of Ukraine. Unfortunately, during the previous week, they've conducted permanent missile attacks. We had civilians suffered, including women and children. Civilian infrastructure was damaged. As well, attacks were inflicted against military objects. During the previous week, the Russian Federation continued to use Shahed UAVs and inflicted against the whole territory of Ukraine more than 250 air attacks. As of today, missile threat remains on the whole territory of Ukraine. In terms of bordering areas, from the side of Belarus border, the situation remains unchangeable, and during the previous week, we didn't mark establishment of assault formations. In terms of bordering northern areas with the Russian Federation, there the enemy increased its activity of its sabotage and reconnaissance groups crossing and violating Ukrainian border. Their number of shellings is rising. Civilian people are suffering, and all of this the Russian Federation is doing in order to hamper our troops and prevent us from the possibility to redeploy them to the areas of operation. On the east, during the previous week, there were ground zero of the hostilities, and the Russian Federation has been advancing on several axes. The most severe hostilities were taking place on Kupiansk axis, where the Russian troops were trying to breach through our defense. It was unsuccessfully. Nonetheless, hostilities were extremely difficult. In terms of Lyman axis, the enemy has been assaulting for the whole previous week. Encounters took place in the vicinity of Serebranka forests, and assaults took place in the vicinity of Novoigorivka, Bilogorivka, Sergiyevka, and Nadia. The enemy was unsuccessful in advancing there. Nonetheless, hostilities were very harsh. In the same way, the Russians continue to advance on Mariinka and Avdiivka axis. They did not refuse from their attempt to encircle Avdiivka, but it's unsuccessfully. As well, unsuccessfully, they are trying to take under control Mariinka. Nevertheless, on these two axes were active artillery, mortar, shelling, air attacks from the Russians. Possible measures in order to save these residential areas and advance. On our defenders were trying to advance during the previous week. On the southern flank, in the vicinity of Bakhmut, they faced quite serious resistance of the enemy, which made advance of our troops more difficult. On the northern flank, in the vicinity of Bakhmut, the Russian troops were trying to assault and retake lost positions, but unsuccessfully. On the south, our armed forces continued offensive operation, in the framework of which they've done a lot of different activities, including demining, reconnaissance, destruction of enemy targets, and advance was extremely difficult because of resistance of Russian troops, because of complete mining of the territories, as well because of cement engineer fortifications created near the key height, which made our offensive slower. Nonetheless, our armed forces are fully ready, and they are using all capabilities and capacities in order to pass through these obstacles. During the previous week, the armed forces of Ukraine inflicted extremely huge damage to the troops of the Russian Federation. They've decreased their offensive and defensive potential. Approximately 30 people were captured. In terms of destroyed military equipment, both on southern and eastern axis, we destroyed more than 340 elements of enemy's equipment, among which tanks, howitzers, mortars, artillery complexes, and even heavy MLRS system Sanzipyok. As well, our Air Force, among 87 launched Shahed Iranian drones, destroyed 68. During the previous week, the Russian Federation launched 20 cruise missiles caliber. 17 of them were downed by our Air Force. As well, 20 KH-100 and 155 cruise missiles were launched. 13 among them were downed, as well as 34 kamikaze drones Lancet, which means that armed forces of Ukraine during the previous week continued offensive and has been destroying enemy in a proper way.